The House will come to order. This morning, the pledge is going to be said by Representative Jim Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would be remiss if I did not mention that in all this haste to get back to the Capitol and all the upset that we've had in our state, that I don't think we really truly recognize Memorial Day. And the reason why we're here, the reason why we can do what we can do, the reason why we can fight each other tooth and nail and disagree on everything is from the blood of patriots that was shed so that we might be able to say this pledge to this flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt, Baisley, Benavidez, got it, thank you. Byrd, thank you. Bockenfeld, Buckner, excuse. Pointeo, Caravale, Carver, Catlin, Champion, Coleman, Cutter, Duran, Escar, Exum, Froelich, Garnett, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Herod, Holtorf, Hooten, Humphrey, Jackson. She's not here, right? Hawkes Lewis, Kennedy, Kipp, Kraft-Tharp, Landgraf, Larson, Liston, Montine, McCluskey, McKean, McLaughlin, Melton, Michelson Janae, Mullica, Neville, Pelton, Ransom, Rich, Roberts, Sane, Sandridge, Singer, Sirota, Snyder, Soper, Sullivan, Kipper,
Late, she's excused.
Titone, Valdez A, Valdez D, Van Winkle, Weissman, Will, Williams, Wilson, Woodrow, Young, and Madam Speaker.
Where's Janet Buckner when you're in?
With how many present?
60.
With 60 present and 5 excused, we have a quorum. Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Journal of Tuesday, May 26, 2020 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk and ask for a yes vote.
You all have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye!
All those opposed say no.
No! No!
Representative Melton would be so proud of you all. I'm sure he is watching right now, feeling so proud. All right, the motion passes. Announcements and introductions. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
Representative Catlin, it is an honor to serve with you.
Thank you very much. Members, if I could get your attention for just a moment. Hey, it's important to me.
Members, can we please have your attention here at the well with Representative Catlin?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. What I wanted to tell you was that 31 years ago today, my life took an amazing change. I found a woman that would put me on track. And she did put me on track, dragged me to church, turned me around, made me something that she could be proud of. But in the meantime, my life has been incredible. So I wanted to let you know today that my wife and I have been married 31 years today. Thank you.
Big congratulations, Representative Catlin. Any other announcements or introductions? Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, it's good to see everybody.
I'm actually the speaker.
Madam Speaker, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
I'm out of practice. Madam Speaker, it's good to see you, and it's good to see all my colleagues. And I know we've been through some tough times, but America is back. I know you've been waiting for this. We have great economic news. Great economic news. I'm sure Representative Melton is here in spirit. That consumer confidence is now back up for the second month in a row. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 32% off its lows in March. It was up 600 points yesterday, another 200 points today. And a gentleman by the name of Jason Furman, who was the chairman of President Obama's Council of Economic Advisors, has predicted that the third quarter GDP growth will be one of the best third quarters in America's history. America is back. America is back to work. God bless America.
Representative Liston, I think that is in the dictionary under the definition of spin. It's all true. Okay. Representative Landgraf, I believe, has it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know who you are. So I have some great news, and this is not spin, from the city of Fountain. Their tax income is actually higher this year than it was a year ago, which is great news, not spin, and something they can be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Landgraf. Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my next door neighbor there, Representative Catlin, kind of called me out. I'm a day late. Yesterday, my wife and I had our 41st anniversary.
Oh. Congratulations, Representative Pelton. Any other announcements or introductions? Members, I'm going to introduce two bills before we go into third reading. Mr. Gregorio, please read message from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, the Senate
Message from the Senate will be printed in the Journal. Introduction of bills.
House Bill 20-1402 by Representative Weissman and Van Winkle. Also Senators Gardner and Lee concerning the non-substantive revision of the statutes in the Colorado Revised Statutes as amended in connection therewith amending or repealing obsolete, imperfect, and inoperative law to preserve the legislative intent, effect, and meaning of the law. House Bill 20-1403 by Representative Robertson Catlin. Also Senators Sonnenberg and Donovan concerning the funding of Colorado Water Conservation Board projects and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
I'm sorry, did you just read both of them? I actually need to assign them. That's okay, we'll do the first one. It's okay, it's okay. Do the first one and then I'll sign it to committee.
House Bill 1402 by Representative Weissman and Van Winkle, also Senators Gardner and Lee, concerning the non-substantive revision of statutes in the Colorado Revised Statutes as amended in connection therewith amending or repealing obsolete, imperfect, and inoperative law to preserve the legislative intent, effect, and meaning of the law.
House Bill, I need the number.
1402. 1402.
1402, what committee is it assigned to? House Bill 1402 is assigned to the Committee on State Affairs.
House Bill 1403 by Representative Robertson Catlin, also Senators Donovan and Sonnenberg, concerning the funding of the Colorado Water Conservation Board projects and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
House Bill 1403 is assigned to the Committee on Rural Affairs and Agriculture. Okay. Now we will go into third reading and final passage of bills. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1318.
House Bill 1318 by Representative Byrd and Will, also Senator Winter, concerning the electronic recording of plats of land.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1318 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1318 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please vote. In the gallery, Representative Duran, how do you vote? Yes. Representative Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich, how do you vote? Yes. Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Representative Gray votes yes. Representative Hooton, how do you vote? Oh, she's here. Okay. Representative Landgraf, how do you vote? Yes. Representative Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean, how do you vote? Representative McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote? Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan, how do you vote? Representative Sullivan votes yes. Representative Titone, how do you vote? That was a yes? Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Buck, please vote. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1318 is passed. Co-sponsors. Is there anyone in the Representative Gray would like to co-sponsor? Anyone else? Okay. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1237.
House Bill 1237 by Representative Young and Sane, also Senator Moreno and Sonnenberg, concerning the assignment of certain children and youth to managed care service areas under the Medical Assistance Act.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1237 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1237 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please vote. In the gallery, Representative Duran, how do you vote? Representative Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich. Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray. Representative Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf. Representative Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean. Representative McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin. Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan. Representative Sullivan votes yes. Representative Titone. Representative Titone votes yes. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1237 is passed. Co-sponsors. Is there anyone? Representative Gray would like to co-sponsor. Any others? Representative Titone. All right, please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1232.
House Bill 1232 by Representative Michelson, Janae, and Liston, also Senator Todd and Priola, concerning equity and access to clinical trials for individuals enrolled in the medical assistance program.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1232 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1232 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please open the machine and members, please vote. Representative Duran, how do you vote? Representative Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich? Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Representative Gray votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes yes. Representative Tatone? Yes. Representative Tatone votes yes. Did I not? Landgraf and Will. Representative Will. You need to vote. Okay. Did Landgraf not? Representative Landgraf? Yes. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1232 is passed. Co-sponsors. Representative Duran will co-sponsor. Any other? Representative Tatone to co-sponsor. Representative Gray to co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1296.
House Bill 1296 by Representative Michelson, Janae, and Soper, also Senator Gonzalez and Quorum, concerning changing the statute of limitations applicable to civil actions alleging sexual misconduct for which the statute of limitations has not yet run as of January 1, 2021.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1296 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1296 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please open the machine and members, please vote. Representative Duran, how do you vote? Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich, how do you vote? Froelich. Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf? Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Representative Sullivan votes yes. Representative Tatone? Tatone votes yes. Let's see, Kraftharp, Bockenfeld, Sane. Please close the machine. With 60 aye votes, 1 no vote, 4 excused, House Bill 1296 is passed. Co-sponsors. Froelich is a co-sponsor. Tatone is a co-sponsor. Duran is a co-sponsor. McLaughlin is a co-sponsor. All right, please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1210.
House Bill 1210 by Representative Caraveo and Duran, also Senator Fields, concerning the continuation of the State Board of Chiropractic Examiners and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations contained in the 2019 Census report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1210 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1210 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please vote. Members in the gallery, Representative Duran, how do you vote? Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich? Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Representative Pabon, Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf? Aye. Representative Landgraf votes like a senator. Aye, yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes yes. Representative Tatone? Tatone votes yes. Please close the machine. With 52 aye votes, 9 no votes, 4 excused, House Bill 1210 is passed. Co-sponsors. Any co-sponsors in the gallery? Okay. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1313.
House Bill 1313 by Representative Sullivan, also Senator Todd, concerning the administration of ballots mailed to electors towards the end of the voting period.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1313 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1313 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please open the machine and members, please vote. Members in the gallery. Representative Duran, how do you vote? Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich. Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray. Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf. Representative Landgraf votes no. Representative McKean. McKean votes no. Representative McLaughlin. McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan. Oh, I think I know how you vote. Yes. I think you're already down as a yes. Representative Titone. Titone votes yes. Humphrey, please vote. Please close the machine. With 37 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1313 is passed. Co-sponsors. Representative Duran would like to co-sponsor. Representative Gray would like to co-sponsor. Representative Titone would like to co-sponsor. Representative Froelich would like to co-sponsor. Representative McLaughlin would like to co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1206.
House Bill 1206 by Representative Michael St-Genet and Landgraf, also Senator Winter and Tate, concerning the continuation of the regulation of mental health professionals and in connection therewith implementing recommendations contained in the 2019 Center report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1206 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1306 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Representative Michael St-Genet.
Tell people. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am asking permission for a third reading amendment.
Would you like to explain what the third reading amendment does?
I will. This is a technical cleanup. I have to say that we have the best drafter in the entire universe on this bill, but she moved exceptionally quickly to create a compromise amendment that we passed yesterday, and there were some technical errors that this is going to fix. I don't know, do I have to ask for it to be displayed?
Sure, you can ask for it to be displayed.
Please display Amendment L021.
Please proceed.
So you see the amendment before you, and you can see that there were a couple of words that had to be striked out, registered and psychotherapist. And there was some renumbering, so I am assured technical in nature.
The question before the House is Representative Michael St-Genet's request for permission to offer a third reading amendment. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine. For those in the gallery, Representative Duran, how do you vote? Duran votes yes. Froelich, how do you vote? Yes. Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Yes. Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf? Representative Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean? Okay, we'll give you a second. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes yes. Representative Titone? Titone votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Please close the machine. With 52 aye votes, 9 no votes, and 4 excused, permission to offer a third reading amendment on House Bill 1206 is granted. Representative Michael St-Genet.
Thank you. I move Amendment L021 to House Bill 1206 and ask for an aye vote.
The question before the House is the passage of Representatives Michelson Janae's amendment to House Bill 1206 on third reading. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please open the machine and members, please vote. Members in the gallery, Representative Duran, how do you vote? Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich? Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf? Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes yes. Representative Titone? Titone votes yes. Buck, Liston, and Singer, please vote. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, no votes, and 4 excused, the amendment, third reading amendment to House Bill 1206 is passed. Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the I move for the passage of House Bill 1206 as amended.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1206 as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please open the machine and members, please vote. Members in the gallery, Representative Duran, how do you vote? Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich? Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf? Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes yes. Representative Titone? Titone votes yes. Benavides, Soper, Rich, please vote. Please close the machine. With 51 aye votes, 10 no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1206 is passed as amended. Co-sponsors. Representative Duran is a co-sponsor. Any others? Representative Froelich. Okay, please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1326.
House Bill 1326 by Representative Byrd and Van Winkle, also Senator Lee and Gardner, concerning an expansion of an individual's ability to practice an occupation in Colorado through creation of an occupational credential portability program.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1326 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1326 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please vote. Members of the gallery, how do you vote? Representative Duran? Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich? Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf? Representative Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes yes. Representative Titone? Titone votes yes. Baisley? Please vote. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, 0 no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1326 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1330.
House Bill 1330 by Representative Lontine and McKean, also Senators Gardner and Lee, concerning modifications to the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act to clarify the statutes of immunity from liability that applies to the University of Colorado Hospital Authority.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1330 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1330 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please vote. Members in the gallery, how do you vote? Representative Duran? Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich? Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Gray votes yes. Representative Hooton? Oh, sorry, you're down here. Representative Landgraf? Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes yes. Representative Tatone. Tatone votes yes. Arndt Hooten, please vote. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, no votes, and 4 excused, House Bill 1330 is passed. Co-sponsors. Representative Landgraf would like to co-sponsor. Representative Gray to co-sponsor. Any others? Representative Tatone to co-sponsor. Representative McLaughlin to co-sponsor. Please close the machine. That brings us to consideration of resolutions. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Resolution 1002.
House Resolution 2010-002 by Representatives Garnett and Benavides concerning the addition of a House rule authorizing the Speaker of the House of Representatives to promulgate regulations for remote participation in legislative proceedings of the House during a declared public health disaster emergency.
Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, sorry, I lost my voice yesterday, so you're gonna have to bear with me. I know. I don't think so, Representative Pelton. But thank you for bearing with me. I move House Resolution 1002.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill Resolution 1002. Is there any discussion? Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this has been a work in progress. I want to thank Representative Tatone and Representative Benavides, Representative Geithner, and other members who were working on this idea throughout temporary adjournment. We are in the midst of a global health pandemic that is taking the lives across this country. The whole world is trying to figure out how to beat this virus. There's still so much we don't know. There are safety guidelines to follow, vaccine research to root for, and articles to read on a daily basis as the research changes. In that vein, we've taken great efforts to make the chamber as safe as possible. We're practicing social distancing, we're washing our hands, we're wearing masks, but there's still a risk. For some in our chamber, duly elected members of this body, that risk is still too great. That's why we've been working throughout the temporary adjournment to find a process for remote participation that works for those members. I believe we have struck that balance with the resolution that is before you today. If you read through statute 2-2-404, it's clear the presiding officer has the opportunity to develop regulations for exactly this type of scenario. There are many rarely utilized statutes and rules we've leaned on during these unprecedented times. What is before you is a limited, temporary change that allows for our colleagues to represent their districts, cast their votes, and make sure their constituents are not voiceless. This is new. This hasn't been done before in this chamber, but we're facing a 100-year health pandemic that has turned our lives upside down. The resolution doesn't open remote participation up to committees of reference. I heard from many people and many members on both sides of the aisle that didn't think that was possible in the short amount of time between when we adjourned and where we are today. The regulations, which I forwarded out to everybody, which are not final, obviously, but could come forward if this resolution was approved, are modest. I share them. They allow a member who's participating remotely to vote on seconds, to vote on division votes, and record their votes on third reading. It does not allow for debate or for moving motions. This body quickly adapted yesterday to the change in the seating chart and the unique voting pattern for recorded votes. We were patient. Mr. Gregorio quickly adapted to working the machine. People in the gallery started knowing the rhythm of how to vote, and this body adapted, just like we're all adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not going to be much different than that. It's essentially allowing people to participate remotely for third reading, so it would expand the number of recorded vote or the roll call votes that the speaker would make, and it allows somebody to participate on second reading, on division votes, and on voice votes, but that's the extent. The technology is there to make this happen, and this is a responsible way of moving forward. Now, there's been some questions about how we can change House rules with a simple majority, and I just want to address that briefly. First of all, I would hope that this would get broad bipartisan support, though that may not happen. Since 1977, on the first day of convening each new General Assembly, the House approves a motion to adopt the House rules of the previous General Assembly as its temporary House rules. The motion, this is the resolution, House Resolution 19-1001, that we adopted on the first day of session last year. It allows for the temporary rules to be amended by a simple majority vote. In the past, the House has amended the rules on a simple majority many, many times. I hope we don't have to go forward with this. I hope it gets broad bipartisan support. But if it may not, I just want to make sure I cleared up that procedural issue. So with that, I hope to earn the support of everybody on House Resolution 10002.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Williams. And sure, if you want to, is that okay? Representative Benavides. And I'm just reminding you all on resolutions, there's a 10-minute time limit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, when we left the chambers on March 14th, we thought it was just a couple of weeks. But the absolute seriousness of this became clear after we left. Our state depends on each of us to lead. We should never buckle under pressure in which we find ourselves. We should be fortified by it. This resolution puts us at the forefront as we join the U.S. House, over a dozen states, and countless local elected bodies in having electronic participation. We are a citizen legislature from all walks of life, and with our own individual strengths and our own individual burdens. This resolution is very narrow, as the majority leader explained, and it will allow every single member to vote on the important work that we are going to undertake in this resumption of our session. We need to allow everybody to represent their constituency and to vote. I really urge you to support this. It is not partisan in any way. It is extremely narrow, and many of you from both sides of the aisle have participated in some of the mock sessions, and you understand that the technology that we have really is useful in this. And I can tell you, before I came to this in March, I never did a Zoom call. I never did a WebEx meeting, but they are pretty intuitive. They work very well. Anybody can do this. And what's important is none of us know if we may be that person next week because we've been exposed to someone who has the coronavirus. And we may need to do this in order to represent our constituency. So this is straightforward. It's an important measure that helps all of us. It helps us as a body, as the House of Representatives, in making sure that everyone around the state is represented. So I urge a yes vote on this resolution. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I just want to take a brief moment to thank the work of our majority leader as well as the committee that put together what we could in the midst of this pandemic. I know this is a tough situation. We're all trying to figure out how to allow everyone to be a part of this deliberative process. And so I'm not so much going to rip on the final product that we're seeing here. I do object and I am going to encourage at least 24 of my colleagues to join me, or 23 of my colleagues to join me in voting no against this, because I do happen to believe that, you know, if you want to participate, then you do have to show up. We have our minority leader here who is himself compromised, more so, and is more likelier than opposed to me to contract coronavirus potentially. And then you have individuals in the gallery who are members who are participating, you know, through that avenue. And so I think there are things set in place for us to do this safely while being in the building. So in that regard, I still urge a no vote on it. But my biggest problem with this is the process. And I do want to thank the majority leader for explaining how we can do this by a simple majority vote, because I do think it is important, because I didn't know it. And, you know, these have been done since 1977, this way to amend a rule. And I didn't know that. And if you look on your rule book on page 36, it talks about the amendment of rules. You know, it's number 47. It says, these rules or any part thereof may be suspended, amended, subtracted from, added to, or rescinded by the affirmative vote of 2/3 of all members elected. That was my expectation. And then I saw the resolution that we all adopted. I even voted on it mistakenly, that we could amend it by a simple majority vote. And I think the process here matters, and we should end that kind of practice from here on out, because I don't think that's a partisan issue. That speaks to who's ever in the majority or the minority. That's an issue of deep importance to me. And so while, yes, I will concede that it takes a simple majority to change these rules right now, moving forward, if some of us or all of us or whoever comes back, we need to really seriously take a look at how we adopt rules. Because it is, I think, a dangerous precedent to allow a simple majority to change these rules. These rules are the only reason that the minority has a voice. Because at this juncture, the majority can do pretty much whatever they want, especially as it relates to that resolution that allows them to simply amend a rule. Now, in this situation, I do appreciate that we're narrowing it and we're keeping it to, you know, allowing for participation in this unique time, but that still doesn't mean that the danger isn't there. And I will encourage all of you to understand one thing, that majorities and minorities do change, and that this is something that we shouldn't look to as partisan. And so moving forward, next legislative session, we should really make sure that Rule 47 stays the way it should be, as it was intended. 2/3 vote should be the only way that we change rules. And it makes perfect sense why, because we want both political parties having a say on these rules and these changes. And I think that's the danger. So like I said, I'm not going to rip the final product. I do have my objections, and I will urge a no vote on it. But the process is the one thing that I really wanted to highlight here and say that this is dangerous to do this and continue doing this practice in the long run. So please vote no, and let's change this up for next year.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in opposition to this resolution. I know it's well intended, and we want to have a good participation, and I'm sure that the sponsors are bringing this with the best of intentions. I give them all due credit for that. But our constituents, or at least for me, the way I felt, that when they voted for us, they expected us to be here, rain or shine, snow, whatever, even if there's unfortunate times like we have right now with with this pandemic that's going on. But I also believe that voting, when we're representing our constituents, we're here to represent our districts, and they expect us to be here. And that the voting should be a matter of conviction, not just a matter of convenience. I've always felt that way. And yes, we have to make sacrifices. I'm even in difficult times, and even if it puts us in a dangerous situation, which obviously this pandemic, the coronavirus has. But I'm reminded, and I know there's more instances than this, but I remember this was about 3-4 years ago when Senator John McCain, who was literally on his deathbed, flew across the country to make a major vote at the U.S. Congress. And I know there's other instances where representatives and senators come in from far-flung places when they're least able to do so, but they still make that vote. And in terms of putting ourselves at risk, I think, as I said before, I'm kind of a junior historian. When I think of the brave soldiers who went in on D-Day at Normandy, they knew full well when they went in storming the beaches at Normandy that they were putting their lives at risk. And they knew exactly that some of them, many of them, thousands of them, would not make it past that first day. But they still did their duty. They went off those Higgins boats and stormed the beaches because that was their job. That's what they had been trained to do. That's what they swore their oath of allegiance to the Constitution, to defend their country. So if those soldiers at Normandy can do it, or the Marines at Iwo Jima, which just this past February was the 75th anniversary. If you've read your history at Iwo Jima, the Marines, when they stormed those beaches, they knew full well that they were going into a death zone, and that thousands of them would ultimately pay the ultimate sacrifice. I also think of a legislative body. In World War II, the House of Commons in Britain, they met day in and day out while London was being bombed. And they didn't say, well, geez, we'll do this at our own when it's safe for us. They were elected by the people to still carry on the business of Britain in times of war while the House of Commons and Parliament was being bombed. So, yes, we're having to make some sacrifices, but that's what we were elected to do. We knew full well that we would have to come up here sometimes in a blizzard or even when our health is bad. I know a number of us have still voted, come in when we're sick, deathly sick, irrespective of when we've had the flu or we don't feel well or whatever. So, I believe in the adage that 90% of winning is showing up. So if it's good enough for our soldiers, if it's good enough for other elected officials, I think it should be good enough for us. So with all due respect, I urge a no vote on Resolution 1002. Thank you very much.
Representative Holtorf.
I'm going to do this now. There we go. Madam Speaker, it's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, Representative.
It's an honor to serve with all my esteemed colleagues. The message I bring today is that I refuse to live in fear. I refuse to live in fear of anything except one thing that's referenced in the Bible, and that is Satan himself. Now, what do I speak of? I have a family like many of you do, and I have a daughter who's an emergency room nurse. And Representative Malika, I greatly respect you for what you do and what you've done in this recess and what you continue to do, because those folks are on the front lines of this pandemic. Well, guess what my daughter has done every day since I came home? She's gone to work. She showed up. She wore her PPE. She has worked with patients. She has watched patients die from COVID in her hospital. Yes, we have a pandemic. Yes, we are at war with an insidious virus. but I refuse to live in fear. And here's what bothers me the most. My daughter says, well, why are you back? I'm going to work. Why can't you wear what I wear and go to work? Boy, ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to answer that question as a representative. Now, I grew up in an environment where you either lead, follow, or get out of the way. So you want to lead, be a leader. You want to follow, be a follower. If you don't want those two responsibilities, then get out of the way. And I'm not going to talk any more about that, but I refuse to live in fear, and this country needs to stop living in fear, and this state needs to stop living in fear. There are so many things we can do to fight this pandemic and take care of our citizens and return this state and this country back to a normal condition that helps heal our society, heal our economy, and heal our human condition. But we have to look in that direction. Instead of looking this way, we got to look that way. We have to want that. Now, participation, as was stated earlier, oftentimes leadership is participation. Just showing up is half the battle. And I spent a lot of time in the military. Many of you know I spent over 29 years serving my country. Now, when we went to formation, we do roll call right here. It reminds me of military formation, ladies and gentlemen. It reminds me of standing in formation and getting that roll call. When you're not there, where are you? What do we call it in the military? It's an acronym. It's called AWOL. You're AWOL, absent without leave. I don't think any of us should be AWOL. And I don't think we should serve our country from home. You can't do it in the military. And I don't think we should serve our state from home. I think we should be here in this esteemed building. I think we have already made great accommodations thanks to the leadership of our majority leader and our esteemed speaker. You guys have done great things to accommodate this House and our minority leader as well. Patrick Neville, Alec Garnett, Casey Becker. That's leadership, what you've done. But going to the House to do this, I don't think is leadership. Now, here's another problem I have when you're at home doing this. If you choose to be at home and do this via Zoom, Skype, WebEx, or whatever technical media you want. And we've all tried to legislate for our homes. It's hard to do. You've got the distraction of your family, your children, your dogs, your business, your mother, your mother-in-law. There's so many distractions. Can you really give it the attention it deserves? I question that because I couldn't give this job the attention it deserved at home. Trying to do what I do at home because you can't do it. There's too many interferences, in my opinion, which is one. If people don't want to do this, they can be excused. We have that provision. We have people excused right now. For whatever reason, reasons of their own choosing, elect not to be here. And we respect that. That's their choice. It's already built in. Do we need to change rules for that? Do we need to leverage this technology? That's a decision we will make here and now. But here's my biggest issue. Here's my biggest issue. How do we know when you're at home that you're not subject to some type of undue influence? Either intentionally or unintentionally. I could be at home, and I'll admit we got a lot of Irish in our family. You probably noticed. Okay, we know the Irish legacy. What if I'm not even sober? How would you know? What if I'm not of a sound state in mind? What if I have some kind of other issue? Or what if someone is, perhaps, influencing me off to the side saying, you know what? We don't want to do that. You have no guarantee of that. But in this chamber, as we sit here today, you have those guarantees. We're here collectively, and there's an energy in this room. There's a dynamic in this room that I feel you should not replace. And I'm a junior guy here. I'm the new guy. But I tell you what, I grew up respecting this. I grew up respecting everything that happens in this building and in this chamber, which I still do. But I have some serious issues with the direction that we discuss as a bipartisan effort, because I don't believe it's a bipartisan effort. I've said in our caucus meetings, and if it's not a bipartisan effort, the dynamic of a republic The dynamic of this great country and this great state is the interaction of us talking, working together, communicating, finding common ground, and the best decisions happen in government in the middle of the road through bipartisan compromise. And I don't think this is. We'll see if we have a party line vote or not, Madam Speaker. And with that, I urge a no vote.
Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I want to bring your attention to one thing, and I'm going to be quick. But I want you to look at the members who are not here. I want you to acknowledge Representative Melton, Representative Jackson, Representative Buckner, members of the Black Caucus who are not here because Black people are dying from this pandemic at 2, 3, 4 times the rate of you all. You ask them not to come in. You say that they are lazy. We are lazy. We are AWOL. Melton had pneumonia and lung failure from the coronavirus. Excuse me. Lung failure from the coronavirus. He then had heart failure 3 weeks ago from the coronavirus. He is watching on TV. He is texting members. He is engaged. But you want him to come here and die? You want him to come here and die because you choose to be here. I am here representing the Black Caucus. I am here representing the Black community. But do not disparage my members who cannot be here because they choose to represent their communities from home and not die. We need our members to live through this pandemic so we can continue to fight for our communities who are disproportionately impacted by the health impacts that we have put on our communities, that we have done and that we continue to refuse to acknowledge. Melton is not AWOL. Representative Janet Buckner is not AWOL. Representative Jackson is not AWOL. If you want to be here, you be here. You let them participate and you let them represent their districts. Do not call them lazy. Do not say that they don't want to be here, they want to lay in their beds at home. Heart attack, lung failure. He is my age. I went to college with Representative Melton. That should not happen to a young man, but it does because that is what this virus is doing to us. So, again, I remind you all, 2 to 3 times more likely to die from this virus if you are African American. I ask you to vote for this resolution so we can continue to participate and we respect our members who cannot be here because of health conditions that we know are grounded in systemic health disparities. All you have to do is vote yes. You may show up and participate how you want. I respect you all. Please show respect to those members who cannot be here. Thank you.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll start by saying I wholeheartedly agree with the comments of my colleague from Denver on that last point. You know, to the comments made from our colleague from El Paso County, I actually had a great uncle who served in the 447th Bomb Group in the Army Air Corps in World War II, and he was shot down, and he lived somehow. And all I can say is that right now we ought to be really glad that we are not like the English Parliament under attack by the Luftwaffe. It would be a lot worse than it even is if we are now. But I actually think that that analogy is somewhat misplaced. I think rather the question is, as we are situated now, knowing what we know now, some of which was just alluded to by our colleague from Denver, having the wonders of technology that we now have, and this thing called the internet, are we going to do what we have always done in the West and in the state in particular, and that is adapt to challenging circumstances in order to go forward? And I think that's what this resolution is about. So I want to touch briefly on 3 things. You know, 1 is law, and 2 is what I think we owe each other as representatives in this place. And 3, and most importantly, is what we owe people in this state right now in a moment of pandemic and recession. To the point of law, the resolution talks about Statute 22404, and I'm not going to bother reading from that. I think more fundamentally is our Constitution, dating to 1876. Article 5, Section 12 gives each chamber of this institution the ability to enact rules to govern itself. I won't bother reading from it verbatim. That is a power as old as common law. That is a power that probably has analog in the Constitution of every state. That is a power that
has analog in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 5. U.S. House makes its own rules. U.S. Senate makes its own rules. That is all we're talking about here. The power to make rules includes both permanent rules, changeable by 2/3, and the power to operate on rules on a temporary basis that we have long, going back decades, under majorities of either party, agreed could be changed with a majority vote. And I think it's worth noting that has never happened before in my recollection. I think it takes something that is this serious, this grave, to bring us to this point, and frankly, that's as it should be. I'm not going to belabor that point much longer. To the point of what we owe each other. If we were talking about a rule that required members to participate from home, that said you can't come in here, that would be a totally different conversation. And frankly, I'd have a hard time supporting such a rule unless the pandemic were a lot worse even than it is. All we are saying is that if, for personal reasons of your own health or your family's health, you are taking too great a risk to come in here in person, and the plexiglass and the masks and the hand sanitizer and the distancing, and all of that isn't enough, then you have the option, and not even the full option that all of us have, but a very, very limited option to represent your district from home, that you can exercise that option. This is no mandate. This is not saying that any of us who want to be here can't be. I would prefer to be here. I hope I'm going to be able to be here every day until we're done, in June or whenever. I really have a problem with the implication that members, are AWOL here. We all talk to each other. We all learn different things about each other. I don't know what members might know about the health challenges that some of our colleagues whose names are up here in yellow have been facing. It's not my place to say. But, if you don't know, find out and be lucky that you're not fighting those kind of things. I'm maybe a few years older than our colleague, Rep. Melton, and I'll speak of those situations only because our colleague from Denver just did. I cannot believe what it means to be 40-something, to be dealing with heart failure, to be dealing with lung failure. We should all count ourselves lucky that we have not had to walk that road. And it is not my place, and I don't think it is the place of anybody in this chamber, to tell such a member that they entirely lose their ability to represent their constituency or come in here and face great risk. We had 4 names in yellow before, now we have 3. It's about 85,000 constituents in each of those districts. So right now, if we don't have a rule like this, we are cutting 250,000 people in this state out of this process entirely. And I don't think that's right. So I think this is a very modest accommodation that we can make for, at the very least, a few members we know have had pretty grave situations that they don't want to further jeopardize by coming down here. And, there, but for the grace of God, go any of us. I really hope that none of us catch this crud in the time that we are here. You may vote against this rule today, and then I just hope none of us ends up needing it who doesn't think we need it now. And the last and most important point, I think, is this. We are guilty sometimes when we come down here of thinking that this place and this process is about us, and it really isn't. It is about 6 million people in this state who count on us to solve problems by passing the right kind of law here, or by not passing the wrong kind of law. And boy, do we have some problems out there right now. Hundreds of thousands of people out of work, people wondering where their rent and mortgage payments are going to come from, people struggling with health care. The very least we can do is a small adaptation to how we run this place so we can go to work for the people who sent us here. I think that is the very least that we can do. So there seems to be a little bit of a partisan divide here. I think that is unfortunate. This resolution and the rules that we've seen in draft form are not requiring anybody to do anything. If you want to be here in person, please come. That's the choice I make too. It was stated, I believe, by Mr. Minority Leader a little while ago, a member's desk is the extension of their district. I might broaden that just a little bit and say that the ability of a member to participate meaningfully in this process, whether in person or not, is the extension of that member's district. That is literally how representation happens. I do not want to cut the constituents of our colleagues whose names are in yellow here out of this process, and I don't think any of us should. So please vote yes.
Representative Williams. And before Representative Williams speak, to the entire body, both sides of the aisle, I just want to make it clear that in our rules, speaking of the rules, Rule 23 talks about whenever speaking or debating before the House, a member shall confine his or her remarks to the question under discussion or debate, avoiding personalities. So let's, as we focus this debate, just avoid anything about individuals or personalities or things like that. Let's always keep it respectful. Thank you, Representative Williams. And Representative Williams, this is your second time speaking, and I think you have about 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I do appreciate you, Madam Speaker, referring to those rules. It's part of the reason I came up here. I still object, obviously, to this rule change, and I've talked about the process, and I think the process and how we've come about this is very dangerous, right? We shouldn't be able to change rules with a simple majority. And I guarantee you that if there were a Republican majority in place right now, there might be a little bit more Democrat opposition to this. But that's a hypothetical, and that's not the situation we live in. Nevertheless, it's dangerous to change these rules with a majority vote, number one. Number two, I do agree that you should be down here in some sort of capacity to participate. And I do object to anyone on this side of the aisle accusing my caucus or anyone in my caucus of somehow being racist or insensitive to race, because there are certain members that are afflicted. Right now, we have our minority leader right here. He had an accident when he was serving our country. His lungs are permanently damaged, but he is here right now participating. Kimmy Lewis, who served her House district prior to Representative Holtorf, died of cancer. She died of cancer. But she faithfully served this chamber, and I guarantee you, I knew her very well. We were elected together. We came in the same class. And if she were here today, if she were still with us, she would be down here participating. She might not be in her chair or at her desk, but she would probably be in that gallery. She'd be here right now participating, even though she would be compromised herself. And that's because she agrees, at least with 23 of us, or 24 of us in this chamber, that if you're going to do the work of the people, you be down here and you work for the people. This is the type of process, this is the type of system of governance that we have that requires full participation in person. And you may disagree with that, fine. Fine, vote for the rule change. But in no way should any member in this chamber accuse my caucus of somehow engaging in insensitive or racial remarks or anything to do with racism. No one in this chamber, as I know of, said that you should stay away. No one told those members to stay away, and no one told them to come in and risk themselves either. They're simply saying that if you want to do this job, then come down here. Come down here and do this job, and do so in a safe manner, because there are steps that we've taken to make this place safe. Representative Melton is a friend of mine. He really is. Didn't always start out that way, but it became that way when we sat next to each other. So I know the health problems that Representative Melton has gone with. I've been texting him through this entire quarantine, off and on. And I certainly understand and I sympathize with why he's not here. And I want to do everything that I can to make sure that he participates in a safe way so that his district is represented in this process. But I think we can do that with an in-person process and not through remote participation, which is why I'm urging everyone to vote no. But I do want to reiterate this one more time. And I said this early on when we weren't, before the pandemic closed us down. I said this in a moment of personal privilege. I said, if anyone attacks my caucus or any individual member of my caucus, I will stand up and I will defend them. It is inappropriate. We don't do that here. We talk about the issues, we talk about the policies, and it is inappropriate to engage in that type of behavior. And I, for one, am sick of it. And I'm sick of members in this chamber signaling to the outside groups, to the public groups that are out there in this whole political game that somehow my caucus or its individual members are racist. This is what happened with our minority leader. And now it appears to be happening again with Representative Holtorf. And it needs to end. This is simply about saying no. We want you to come here and participate, and we'll do so in a safe manner. That's it. Any implication otherwise is vastly wrong, and we shouldn't even be discussing it. So I would simply ask that we stick to the issues here, and the issue is remote voting. And we do care about everyone that is compromised. Contrary to popular belief, the Republicans in this chamber care about the health and well-being of the Democratic members. So we can end the discussion there. Thank you.
So we have Representative McLaughlin in the gallery, and anyone else in the gallery, because I keep forgetting about you all. Okay. Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you. And thanks for not forgetting about us up here. I wasn't going to bring up, you said don't bring up an individual, but I needed to bring up Kimmy Lewis. Kimmy and I didn't necessarily agree politically, but we were friends, and we were going to have her memorial just before we left here. And I think it's great to say she was like the bravest woman I know. She did come every single day and then went to lay down after she'd gone to, horrendous medical procedures. So I have always had, and I always will have, great respect for Kimmy Lewis. But I would like to ask you, if she had asked to stay home, would you have said no to her? Would you have not let Kimmy Lewis have her voice here? She came every other day. She was a hero. But if she had asked to stay home because of her cancer, would you have said, no, get down here or you don't vote? We have members in this legislature who are just as susceptible as Kimmy Lewis. And there's some that Leslie mentioned that cannot make it today. They cannot make it today. We do not want them to die because of a rule change. I think we have to think of Kimmy. We have to think of Janet Buckner. We have to think of Jovan Melton. We have to think of Dominique. We need to remember that some people cannot come. It's not a choice that they're like, oh, I would rather sit at home. They cannot come. And I think we need to be sensitive to that. And a rule change in this matter that lets people vote. We were all elected to be here. We should all have that right to vote. Have none of you ever taken a day off because you had a new baby or you had to go to Washington, D.C., or you had to do something else that was more important than being here? The people who want to vote remotely take this job very, very seriously, and they want to be here. And we have people who have been working on this. I have participated in many of the remote hearings and the remote testimony, and it works. And you get to have your voice heard. We were elected to have our voice heard. So I think when you start saying that unless you're here, you can't have your voice heard in these traumatic times, I just think you're off base with that. And I think we all need to work together on this. We are a team here. We're not Democrat or Republican when it comes to health. I think everybody should have the right to have their voice heard here. So I agree with this. Thank you.
Representative Herod, and then Carver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to be clear that bringing up issues of race is not calling anyone racist. Representative Holtorf, Representative Williams, I am not calling you racist. Talking about diversity and systemic disparities in our healthcare system and how it is impacting the Black caucus in my community is what I'm here to do. I'm not calling you racist. Just like when you come down and talk about rural Colorado, you're not calling me an urbanist necessarily. You're not using it as a slander. You're just telling me how your district is impacted by the policies that we're passing. I just ask for the respect to be able to talk about my community too. That's all I'm asking. I am not calling you racist. I have not called you racist. You can say I am under your breath if you want to, but I'm looking you in the eye and I'm telling you I'm not calling you racist. I am saying that members of the Black Caucus are texting me. Members of the Black Caucus are talking about how this is impacting our communities. Black people are 2 to 3 times more likely to die from coronavirus. Our members are impacted by that. I should be able to bring that up without people thinking I'm calling them racist. Race conversations are hard to have. They're hard, but it's our responsibility to do so as these policies affect us. So if I want to call you racist, I'll call you racist to your face. But what I just said was not calling anyone in this chamber racist. And we can talk offline more about it if you want to, but I want to be clear that when I bring up issues of race, it's not calling anyone racist, and if you want me to stop talking about it, then maybe you should think about where that's coming from.
Okay. Representative Carver.
Members, I am concerned what we are doing to our institution. When we talk about rules, the historical evolution of legislative bodies, going back to colonial assemblies in the 13 colonies, the development of legislative rules in the great House of Commons. I don't know about you, but the histories of Cromwell and Disraeli and Churchill and the development over time of how you bring integrity to this kind of institutional body. I'm probably the only one that can get emotional about this, so forgive me. But when we talk about what is the meaning of a quorum, it is those present engaged in our official duties. What gives that meaning if you open this up to remote participation? I think about Priola, who I think in my first year here was in a terrible skiing accident, shattered his leg, was out for weeks. He missed all those votes. He was ultimately reelected. His voters could have decided, oh, do we want to keep this guy as our representative? They made the decision to do that. Kimmy Lewis had a decision to make. I sat next to her in transportation. When she would go through chemotherapy, she felt so awful. But she showed up. That was a decision she made. I don't know that she ever considered going to leadership and asking for remote participation. But members, even in the conversations we're having on this resolution, with all due respect, we can see there really is no limiting factor once you go down this road. Is there? There's no limiting factor in this resolution. Yes, it talks about absence during this pandemic, during this session, but respectfully to every member here, there is nothing in this resolution that talks about persons in ill health being given an alternative way to participate. It isn't restricted to members who are facing the very severe health risks that we've just heard about, all of who are devoted to their duties. Any member, once this resolution is passed, can exercise the right to participate remotely. Whether it's fear, I'm not going to question their personal perspective on the decision, how they view their risk, the risk to their families, etc. It's not for me to judge that. But what we are doing here, by majority vote, I believe undermines the institutional principles governing legislative bodies in our official duties. And respectfully to those who worked so hard on this, Representative Benavides, who just has been stalwart in the hours she has spent on this. And may I say, well chosen, because nobody looks at details more than Representative Benavides. God bless you. Truly, how would you limit it? Do we say it's those currently suffering physical, with current physical ailments? Do we say it includes somebody like Representative Landgraf, who has a heart condition and who is at greater risk? Or some of us, myself included, that are on the other side of 60 and we have a greater health risk? How do we limit? And in the discussion, we've heard about other circumstances already suggested. We haven't even voted on the resolution yet, and we're already in this body talking about opening up remote participation in more and more circumstances. I don't know, for some of you, when we voted on authorizing remote participation in interim committees, we did that in a statutory process. When we voted on a bill, which I didn't vote for, to allow remote voting on school boards, that was a statutory process. This is by resolution, and even more disturbing, majority vote. And I respect the Speaker. You know, the resolution that was passed in our temporary rules said what it said, right? Majority vote. But why, members, if you go back and look at the history of House rules and Senate rules back to the start of this chamber, why have we written our rules to require supermajority? Self-evident, right? The institutional rules of what we do here need to be not a majority view. When you go down that road, I believe we are undermining the fundamental principles of this body. With all due respect and with complete understanding of our colleagues, many who are struggling with severe health issues, and sincerely believe that they cannot be present because of the health risk. So I will be a no today. I regret the process. I regret that we are not following the 2/3. I regret that we are not doing this as a change in statute. I regret that this has no limiting factor. Once this is passed, I wake up in the morning and I say, oh my goodness, you know, I've got increased risk. I'll just participate by remote. And yet I am doing an official duty in voting that has hundreds of years of history behind it and what goes into that official decision that imposes legal obligations on our fellow citizens. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Larson and then Representative, is that McKean? Okay, I just can't see that far. And then Michelson Janae and then Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I echo a lot of the sentiments that we just heard from Representative Carver coming before us, but something that I do want to point out to all of us that I think is lost in the spirit of this resolution. I've heard people mention specific members, mentioning former Representative Lewis's circumstance. We all, as members of this body, know the three people who are not here now, and I don't think that any one of us has any doubt that they are home for the right reasons. We know them personally. But being in this room, we forget it is not our voices that matter. It was not Kimmy Lewis's voice that matters. What was important was the 80,000 people that she spoke for. And it is not an entitlement for any one of us to be here in this seat. The seat represents the people that we represent. It doesn't represent our point of view. We're not down here, I'm not down here voting as Colin Larson, I'm down here voting as House District 22, and the 80,000 people that live there. And it is a privilege to represent those people. But my personal circumstance, the fact that I have a heart condition that I've dealt with my entire life, is not relevant to whether or not the people of House District 22 have representation. And I can make that choice for myself, just as each and every single one of us can make that choice for ourselves. And if we think that the right choice is that we're going to stay home because of our personal health circumstance, and we feel confident that our communities agree with that, and that they will reelect us to be their voice, that is our individual choice to make. And I have no issue with any one of us making that call for themselves. And I just stand in judgment of nobody. But the important thing that we need to remember, and what we are heading down here with this resolution, is we are further eroding the fact that we are representing the people, that it is not important. None of us are individuals that are important here. It is the people that we represent. We are not entitled to these seats. It is the people behind the seats that are important. And if we are going to allow members to start participating from their home, then where is the public participation? How can a constituent of ours swing by our office if we're in our house? How can somebody show up and try to talk to us before we cast a vote on third or second reading if we are sitting in our homes? How are we, as members, supposed to interact with the public, with the people that are in this building every single day, and indeed with each other if we are in our homes? And I think it's important to keep in mind that we are all representatives here, and our individual health circumstances are our own to take into consideration, but passing a resolution like this sets us down a path to continued isolation from the public. I think it furthers a bad precedent and a bad mindset that these seats belong to us as individuals and not to the people that we represent. And I just strongly caution against heading down that path. And I want you all to think about that before you vote today, and I strongly urge a no vote. Thank you.
I'm just going to go through the list so that if you don't want to wait in the well, you don't have to, but it's McKean, then Michelson Janae, then Liston, then Byrd, then Neville, then Cutter, and now Soper after that. Okay, so Representative McKean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you, Representative.
It's an honor to serve with all of you. Actually, I want to say a thank you to Representative Froelich, who also was stalwart in trying to figure out how do we come back into this chamber and do our jobs. Meg, you did a hell of a job. And you really did. You went and looked at other legislatures. You went and looked at what is the best analysis of how we can do our job safely here. I think you did a great job, and thank you for that. So we came back. When I came into this chamber on Friday night to take a look at how this was going to work, one of the things that had me gravely concerned was that we had seats for representatives, for members on the South Gallery. We had seats for members on the East Gallery. We had seats for the press on the North Gallery. But we did not have a designated place for the public to come and sit and watch us do their job. That, to me, is one of the most paramount things, and it is not from the writing of the Colorado Constitution. It's not even from the writing of the United States Constitution. It is literally from the words drawn from the blood of the people who began this incredible republic. When they penned the Declaration of Independence and said that King George has removed the places of the legislative bodies and removed them from their documents and removed them from the things they needed to do their jobs. That was done to them. But it sets a standard for how we do our jobs for the citizens of this great state and of this country. It does matter where we are. It does matter that the public can come and watch our votes. Do I think that people are affected by untoward influences in their votes? No, I really don't. I think we all have communications with people all the time. But it is a vital concern that we do those things in this chamber where we are under those witnessing eyes of this is how my representative works, this is where they are. I can not only access them, but I can witness the work they do. You all know me well enough to know that the institution of this legislature is more important to me than any of you. I can honestly say I love you all, but I love this bigger, more monumental thing that we are a tiny little speck part of, far more than that. When we change a rule, we should do it very deliberatively, even in the moment of a crisis. In fact, maybe especially in the moment of a crisis. That is the moment when our natural instinct is to fix the problem at hand immediately and move on and get it done. But as I think we all know in our own lives, the moment of critical mass when you say, I'm going to take that decision, by God, I'm going to make it today, sometimes that's when we need to stop and delay and when we need more input. More input in this body looks like a 2/3 vote. Because then never does the majority get to inflict a rule on the minority. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle that is. When we have a resolution as we pass at the beginning of the 72nd General Assembly, we do those things as a matter of course. That matter of course is actually important so we can get on with our business. I asked the question when I saw that resolution of our legal services, when was the last time we had permanent rules? Well, we haven't for a very long time. I think it begs the question of maybe we should. Because if what we're doing is operating under temporary rules with the understanding that we can change them with a majority vote, then I think we're all operating under a slightly skewed perception of how important the rules truly are. The rules of this body are what give this body the temperance to withstand the ages. If we can change them on a whim, I'm not saying this is a whim, I'm just saying if we can, then what rule meets the test? I want every single person who is absent today to be able to represent their 80,000 constituents. That is a piece of who I am, my ethic of how we represent and how we serve and what governance looks like. However, this institution sets a standard that I must meet. I think that's an important test. I urge a no vote.
Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I can't tell you what it means to me to be physically standing in front of you today. I'll tell you a little bit of the back end is that my doctor cleared me to come, but my husband begged me not to come. My children begged me not to come. When I fell ill in early March, interesting things were happening in this chamber. One of my colleagues who sits behind me was sick with a cold. And then one of my colleagues who sits 2 seats from me became sick with a cold. And then my neighboring colleague became sick with a cold, and then I became exceptionally, I'm not blaming you, my friend. And then I became exceptionally ill. We have standards so high about attendance that we have a doctor of the day in the chamber, so that if we become ill, we can see that doctor can prescribe something to us, and we can continue on with our work. Those are regular times. During those regular times, while Kimmy was sick, so was I, with uterine cancer. And I came to this chamber every day, no matter how sick I felt, to the point that one day the sergeants had to take me to the hospital for treatment because I became so ill. But the difference is, I can't give you my uterine cancer, right? That uterine cancer is not contagious. I can hug you, which I so desperately want to do. I can share a handshake with you, and you're not going to get my cancer. And so I come to work because I don't put you at risk. Why do I wear my mask? My mask doesn't protect me. My mask protects you. And I want you to think about that for a minute. Wearing a mask does very little for me if you are ill. I'm still likely to catch that if you don't wear a mask. My doctor's one rule for me was I'm not allowed to talk to anybody who isn't wearing a mask. Well, I can't do that. My husband knows I can't do that because I'm going to talk to everybody because, like my colleague before me said, I love you all in this chamber. We have had some amazing work together. And I want you to consider that what we're putting before you is not about ordinary illness or extraordinary illness, such as cancer, such as a skiing accident. We all do everything that we can to be physically in this chamber every day. But we are in a once in a 100-year pandemic. An illness that we haven't seen before, that we don't have a cure for, that we don't even have medicine for. When I became ill, I received cards and well wishes from many, many people. The one card that still stands on my desk came from the Minority Caucus leader, representing the well wishes from the Minority Caucus. A beautiful paper, if you haven't seen them, very cool pop-up flower thing. I used to make stationery. I love these things. It sits right next to my bed and reminds me every single day that love doesn't know party. And what I'm asking for you today is to think about the fact that we're in a once in a 100-year situation. I want to tell you what it felt like to be sick. Every night around 2 o'clock, I woke up not able to breathe. My husband had to come in and set up my nebulizer. Sometimes the nebulizer worked, sometimes it didn't, because I was so clogged up in my lungs that the medicine could not get in. And I would cough and cough and cough until I vomited. Every night. My husband feared that I would die. I feared that I would die. So much so that I wrote down in a will that I want the governor to sign my bill that he doesn't want to sign. And I made him the executor of my will. Not even kidding. Like, if I'm gonna go, that bill's gonna pass. We passed it already in here, so I'm not lobbying you. This illness is very serious. I could not hug my children. My daughter, all she wanted was a hug. We created a space, right? I was supposed to be completely isolated. But if you have children, you know you cannot completely isolate from your children. So they would stand by the door and they would say, "I'm entering the containment zone." And they were all masked up. And I could not hug my children because I didn't want to kill them. Think about the difference that we are talking about today, please. This is a once in a 100-year scenario where I could make my colleague next to me sick, and I worried she had to quarantine when I became so ill so that we were sure that she wasn't making her children sick. Think about that. I don't want to make any one of you ill. I don't want to keep any one of you from your children or your granddaughter or anyone. And there's a way we can handle that. There's a way we can handle that using what we have available to us today in a very simple fashion. I don't have to get the other members who aren't feeling like they can safely come into this chamber sick, because they can participate on a platform that is secure, that is limited, doesn't even give them a chance to debate. I want you to know that every single day that I was sick, I worked. You can check my email, you can check my phone, you can Quora the hell out of me. I worked every single day that I was sick. And some days I was only awake for 2 or 3 hours. We did not know what the outcome was going to be. I spoke to my doctor every single day, and our one goal was to keep me out of the hospital. And we did it. We did it. To stand here before you is the greatest gift I have ever received. But if I had not gotten well, I would have been begging you to please, please allow me to participate even in the most limited way possible. Because I have 80,000 people who rely on me too. So I'm not going to stop working. I'm going to do everything I can. This is once in 100 years. Please consider the difference. Like my colleague from Colorado Springs, I too love history. And just this morning on my walk with my husband was talking about why the speaker leaves when we do the cow, because she might be a spy for the king. We don't have a king. But I love that history. But we also have to understand that there are advancements that make it possible. I have been doing Zoom town halls since before the coronavirus even became a thing. And I get letters from my senior members who say, thank you for doing this because I can turn up the volume. I can't hear you when we're sitting in a hall. There are ways to be face-to-face with your constituents and face-to-face with our members and not be in the room. Please consider that this is a once in a 100-year pandemic that could make all of us ill and kill us, and we have no solution. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Liston, you no longer want to speak. So then I have Representative Byrd, then Neville, Cutter, then Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for indulging me. I want to take a moment just to point something out. You know, we all, first and foremost, politics is about relationships, respecting one another, working together for the betterment of our state, to do for our people. With that, though, we owe each other, we should have a sense of responsibility to one another. It's every one of ours responsibility when we come into this chamber to be doing everything we can to inspire confidence in our colleagues that we want to protect their health, especially now in a pandemic. And I guess listening to a lot of the comments that are being made, the point hasn't been made that I feel like people who are immune compromised, colleagues of ours, are being backed into a corner and faced with really an impossible situation. We have many members of us, and I say this with all kindness and due respect, because for those of you who won't come and wear masks or take it seriously, I don't want you to take this in any other way, but we can't put people in a box where they have no meaningful choice, that if they come in to serve and represent the citizens of their district, then they won't feel like we are doing everything we can to protect their health. It's an impossible choice. So if we're really going to be in a place where we demand people's presence here in the chamber to represent their constituents, then we have a responsibility, each and every one of us, to take every precaution we can to make sure that our colleagues feel safe and that their health isn't threatened. It's completely unfair. So how we conduct ourselves outside the chamber also. Are we doing everything we can? You know, if you watch the news, if you watch public health experts, and this is coming out of the White House as well, from the CDC, Dr. Birx, Dr. Fauci, they're telling us, wear a mask. And the mask is not to protect yourself. We're not living in fear. I'm not wearing this because I'm terrified for my own health and I'm living in fear. I'm wearing this mask because I care about Representative Will. I care about Representative Liston. I care about every one of my colleagues in this chamber, because we do know, this has been proven, that there are individuals who can be asymptomatic carriers of this virus. So I'm not living in fear. I'm living wanting to give you a grand expression of kindness, letting you know I care about you, and if I happen to be one of those people, I don't want to be the one who makes you sick, or if you have a spouse, that you then take this virus home and you make your child or your spouse sick. So let's be fair about this, and let's be intellectually and consistently honest here. If we're going to demand people to come, then it's incumbent upon us to do everything we can to make sure that those people have a fair opportunity to feel safe and to know that their colleagues respect their health and aren't going to damage them and jeopardize them. I have another point I wanted to make as well. Frequently, I hesitate on speaking of things that I don't personally live, but as a citizen, I think it's important for us to spend a moment reflecting. So a colleague of mine from Denver came and made some wonderful comments, educating a lot of us who don't understand what is happening and the disproportionate effect of this virus on our Black and our brown communities. So I have to tell you, I don't live that existence. I live in suburban Westminster. But I have to tell you, I'm so grateful that we have the voices of our minority caucus members to come and share and represent people who are so diverse and have life experiences that are so different from our own. And when we hear those voices, I would implore every one of my colleagues, please don't take it as an attack. We're here to bring the voices of our diverse constituencies to this building so that when we pass laws, we're respectful and we're honoring the needs of all of the people in our state. There's no attack. I felt no attack. I don't live in a very diverse community myself, and I'm so grateful for Representative Herod bringing the stories of those she does represent so that I can be more informed. And I have to tell you, I feel the same way when we hear people coming from rural Colorado to come and speak to us about things that are different that you experience on the western slope, on the eastern plains, ways of life that I've never known because I've only ever lived in an urban area. So I'm grateful for the voice you bring. Please, let's give respect and let's be grateful. Let's have gratitude when we have someone who's telling us things are very different. And it should be underscored. None of this is partisan. This virus doesn't care if you are Black, if you're white, if you're Republican, if you're Democrat, if you're independent. This is a public health threat to all of us. We're here to lead. And in the process, let's please respect one another, and let's please do all that we can to make sure that we're taking care of each other and showing our citizens the best course forward. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Representative Neville, then Cutter, then Soper, then Titone, and then Champion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I was kind of hoping that it would take at least longer than a day or so or 24 hours before we started impugning people's motives. Look, there's times where I wear a mask. There's times where I don't. People don't know what it's like to be me with only 60% lung capacity. Look, on a good day, right now is a good day. My pulse ox runs about 93, and I check it about 3 or 4 times a day. And that's when I'm having a really good day. On average, my pulse ox runs about 91 because of my lungs. If it drops to 90, then I start my rescue inhalers. I think I'm following the right protocols. You know, we have some nurses in here and some doctors who would say that's the correct protocols, but it's not always easy to wear a mask. I certainly don't appreciate anyone bringing up the legacy and the great memory of Representative Kimmy Lewis to try to urge passage of this bill. Kimmy was the toughest person I've ever met in my entire life. She was calling me on her deathbed. And you know why? Because she wanted to make sure her vacancy committee was all set up and that her vacancy would run smooth. When she was here, she didn't ask for any special privileges. Marilyn did make her a little bed so that she could actually go down there and rest a little bit during her chemo sessions. And you know what? The whole time she told me, I knew for the longest time that she was going through all this, but you know what she told me? You aren't allowed to tell anyone because I don't want anyone's pity. So please, if we cannot bring up her name as a reason to vote in favor of this, I would appreciate it, and I think her family would as well. We don't know people's motives of why they vote one way or another. I can tell you, my motives for voting no on this has zero to do with race. I can tell you, my caucus motives for voting no on this has zero to do with race. If there was a member who did have coronavirus in this chamber, I think it would be appreciative also that we actually knew that. I know if I did contract it, I would let you all know so that you could take proper measures. You know, look, I've got personal issues myself. I've got personal medical issues myself that really scares me. But you know what really drove it home to me was when I found out other members of our caucus have family members. For me, it's one thing to put myself at risk, but if I were to put my wife or my kid at risk, that would be much more difficult than putting myself at risk. And so we're hearing this person had it, this person had it. This is news to me. As far as I knew this whole time, the only person who's had it is Senator Jim Smolin, my good friend. And that was no joke. He did the right thing, self-quarantine. Senator Rand Paul also had it. He did the right thing, self-quarantine. He didn't get the opportunity to remote vote. Several members of the U.S. Congress had it, didn't even have a chance to remote vote. Last I checked, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is not even doing this. And here we're talking people coming from the entire country, from major hotspots, New York, all over the country. Frequent flyers, a lot more dangerous than what we're talking about in this chamber. So I'd appreciate it if people could not put motives and words into my member's mouth. I don't think a single Republican got up here and called anyone lazy. That never happened. Let's have a little more respect and not put those words in someone else's mouth. I have major concerns, so let me tell you my reasons for voting no on this. We have in statute right now, it says in statute very clearly that remote participation is not to be used for purposes of voting. I get it, we have an opinion from our legislative legal counsel that says that our rules trump statute. I disagree with that opinion. I do not think we are above the law in this chamber. And I think that if we are going to change our rules and actually allow remote voting, we must at least change statute. I have other concerns too of the message that we're actually sending out to our citizens. We are not allowing them to remotely participate. In fact, we have extra restrictions. If you come from Douglas County that has very little restrictions, we are saying you have to follow Denver County restrictions in order to testify and participate in the legislative process down here. Forcing those individuals to wear masks when we don't even know their health issues. Their health issues could be much worse than mine, and I have to take my mask off every now and then just to breathe. We force them to wear a mask to come in here to participate. We don't allow them remote participation. So I have major concerns. First and foremost, that we are sending the message that we are somehow greater than the citizens that we represent, and for that reason, I am a no vote. No other reason.
Representative Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's interesting. I don't have much to say. Many of my colleagues have said things beautifully and brilliantly from both sides. There's been some excellent points, and I appreciate the debate. But I do want to clear something up. There's been a lot of discussion about motives, and the fear motive has been attributed to those of us who choose to wear masks. And this has been on my mind a lot. And I believe Representative Byrd discussed this as well. This is not about fear. She put it very beautifully. This is not about fear. And I don't appreciate anyone attributing an emotion or a reason to my motives. I do this, as I believe all of my colleagues do, out of care, out of concern. We don't know. We don't understand this virus. We don't understand the implications. We don't understand what the cure will be. There's so many unknowns that, to me, taking an extra step to keep other people safe and to stop the spread of this virus, while it may be inconvenient, it is certainly not unreasonable. This resolution is in response to something that is not normal. This is not about normal life. This is not about somebody with a terrible, tragic illness, but an illness that people get. This is about something that doesn't happen, that has never happened, that is unprecedented. And if we cannot now rise to the challenge and be flexible and creative in including our colleagues and representing our constituents, then what does that say about us as a body? Every one of us has the right and should be able to represent our constituents. And to date, there has been, more than 1,300 Coloradans have died. More than 1,300. That's not acceptable. And for me to do anything possible to be able to represent our constituents in a safe and secure manner, this is 2020. Technology is available for us to use it, and it's up to us to rise to the challenge and embrace whatever opportunities we have to get the job done for the people of Colorado and continue to move forward. So I hope that we can have our healthy debate in a reasonable amount of time so that we can get back to work for the people of Colorado, because that's what they're expecting, and that's what I'm here to do.
Representative Soper.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, sitting back, listening to this debate, took me back to studying political science, and I had a professor, Dr. John Redifer, who said, when there's a really tough issue and you see really good points on both sides, what's the answer? And he said, you're right. But you have to make a decision, because we're going to be taking a vote here in a few minutes. And I am rising in opposition, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, I have to address a point that has stuck in my head for a long time, because my good colleague from Arvada had a conversation with me before we got here to this chamber about this very topic, and she raised it again today. And that point is, what if one of our members were to test positive for the novel coronavirus? Then we would all need to go home and self-quarantine, which, by the way, quarantine comes from the French word quarantine, which is about 40 days. So it's very good to understand the origin of words. And it came out of other pandemics from either the 1400s or 1600s, depending on which version of the dictionary you read. And so, people have been quarantining for a very long time. Whether it's 40 days we would be quarantining or 2 weeks. How would we address the work of the people? And that question has definitely rattled around my mind, because I believe that is a really valid question, because it's not like last year when I came down with a heavy cold or possibly the flu. What did I do? I chose not to come to the chamber. Instead, I stayed home because I didn't want to share the illness with the rest of you. But this is a very different situation here. And this leads to the reason why we should meet quickly and address the two things that constitutionally we're required to do, which is pass the budget and the School Finance Act and get out of this building as quickly as possible. So I think that's part of my answer to that question. The other part to that question is that this resolution opens up a major can of worms. And there's many issues that are tied to this that are steeped in history that lots of my colleagues have addressed, but there were a couple of areas that weren't. And in our Declaration of Independence, one provision in there talks about how the king called together legislative bodies in unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depositories of public records, Well, Denver is our state capital. It says it in our Constitution. This is the usual place of meeting of the Colorado General Assembly. But what would happen if all 65 of us were to exercise the resolution we're about to vote on and stay in our districts? The words usual place of meeting has a completely new meaning. How would the public access us as the representatives? At least by being down here, they know where we're supposed to be, where we ought to be. And there's going to be things that will come up for why each one of us may not be able to physically be here. Whether it's coming down with a cold, a major broken leg, being out for surgery as I was recently. But we do have this, have to look at the institution as a whole. And then we have to further go down the analysis of what is remote and where is remote allowed. So I recently was reading an article that suggested that New Zealand had completely gotten rid of the coronavirus. If we were to go into doing everything remote, why wouldn't I hightail it to New Zealand and be in a place of relative safety? Or be in rural Colorado, where our numbers are incredibly low. I could definitely see hanging out there. But then that raises another issue. And this is probably one of the biggest issues for why I'm voting no on this resolution. The resolution, good morning, welcome back. It's greatly discriminatory by the fact that at my house, I couldn't really participate in the mock sessions that were going on because my internet is not fast enough. As many of you know, I represent one of the most rural districts in all of Colorado. And depending on where the representative for House District 54 physically lives, they may not have any internet capacity at all. I'll give you a good example. I tried to call Representative Will over the recess. I couldn't get through to him on his cell phone, so I had to call his landline. And he said, yeah, Matt, I have no cell phone coverage. And I said, yeah, that's actually the same problem for me. I've actually had to rearrange furniture for where I can stand in my house to have a cell phone signal. That's the reality of rural Colorado. And then if you wanted to do the analysis slightly different, you could tell me if you feel like you need to do remote participation, go to a place where you have better internet. Well, that would probably be my library. Well, the library was closed due to the pandemic. And internet cafes are a thing of the 1990s and no longer exists. Coffee shops were closed. So the ability to find a place that had better internet capacity to be able to participate just wasn't an option. Either I'm physically here, or even if the resolution were to pass and someone were to have the coronavirus and all 65 of us were to go back to our districts, some of us would never be able to participate at all, and the voices of our 80 or 85,000 constituents would be fully stifled. And I do not want rural Colorado's voice to be stifled any more than it already is. So I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Titone.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I worked on a lot of the participation testing when it came to this procedure we're talking about. And I was particularly interested in this because I have a health issue that puts me at risk. And I thought that I might be a candidate to be using this. And I am here today, and I have been here yesterday, and I will try to do my best to avoid everyone. That's why I'm up here in the gallery. I just want to be as safe as I possibly can. But for some people, that is still not enough. Now, some people were talking about, why are we not having people up here in the gallery? Well, it was a privilege back in the old days for people to come here and watch the legislature. Some people had to travel far, far away on horseback to get here. Now you can get here through car. You can come here and you can watch. Not only that, we have the Colorado Channel, and that's only been around since 2008. Do we want to use the technologies that we have to give people the ability to participate, whether by watching here in the gallery, in the comfort of their own home, on the internet, from anywhere around the world? These are the things that we are using right now and have been to give people more access. We have boards up on the wall so we can see the votes, so we can see what's going on, to make this process easier for people. And we've been doing this for decades. As new technologies come about, we are doing things to make the work that we do here easier. 12 states have already done rules or statute changes to allow us to allow them to participate remotely. We don't know what's going to happen in January when many of us are going to be back here. And many of you have not participated in the tests that we did. And I think that if you had seen with your own eyes and participated with the process, you'd have a better appreciation of what it looks like, what it is and what it's not, what it's capable of and what it isn't. And you'd be able to understand why this is a possibility, and this is something that many other places are doing. I want to make sure that Representative Melton can stay home, and I appreciate him being here today to make his statement and then hopefully go home, because that's where you should be. You shouldn't have to be here and have an unnecessary risk to yourself. And that's what this is about. This is about a virus that is out of control. This is about using the technologies that we have, and we should be able to use, as we have with iLegislate, with the boards. We can go back to doing things like the Senate does. You want to do that? We can get rid of our technology, but we embrace it as we start to see what the capabilities are and how those things can make our process better, and to make it so that way we can live a better life and not have to put ourselves in unnecessary risk. So that's why I'm voting yes, and that's why I'm a sponsor of this resolution, because I believe in what we're doing here. I believe that this is the right thing to do, and this is a tool that we can use and prove that it is working for the next session and down the line. Because this is not the last time we're going to see a pandemic. This is only the tip of the iceberg. It's going to get worse as populations grow. Pandemics like this are going to be more commonplace, and we're going to have to be ready for it. And if we are left behind, we are going to be struggling to just get back here to pass a law or resolution just to do what we're doing here today. So let's just do this now, and then pass a statute at some point later on maybe, but we just need to get this over with and get into the 21st century where we live today. So I urge you to vote yes.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members, for being here and doing the work of the people. I tried to not come in. In fact, I was texting colleagues all morning, get down there and say this. I can't believe that this debate is going in the direction that it's going. To be compared to a person that went AWOL, to be compared to a soldier that wasn't willing to do their duty. That hurt. And it's a shame that I had to drive across town against my doctor's orders to be here, to speak up and ask for some compassion, to speak up on behalf of not just myself, but Representative Buckner and Representative Jackson, whose names are also lit up on this board. You know, it's not just about my own story, but I will tell you what I've been through. In December, I wasn't feeling well, And after a couple days, I took myself to the emergency room because I had a 103-degree temperature and I was coughing up blood. I got to the emergency room and was diagnosed with pneumonia. And I spent 5 days in the hospital just for them to get my blood oxygen back up to where it needed to be and for the blood clots that were in my lungs to dissipate. Since day one that we started the session, I've had a tank of oxygen in my office. Many of you have seen me sneak up to my office to take oxygen. You know the last time I knew a member that did that? It was Representative John Buckner, who had to miss the last month of his last session and died a couple months afterwards. We want to serve. We want to be here. Shortly after we adjourned and went into recess, I started having some other conditions that happened because of the pneumonia, and I was diagnosed with acute heart failure. My blood was pumping 17% of what it should be. My heart was pumping 17% of what it should be. I kept feeling like I was going to pass out. And my doctor said that had I passed out, I would have gone into cardiac arrest. I should not be here. My doctor has told me, do not go to work. But the nonsense that I'm hearing in this chamber, I can't help but go to work. The things that I'm hearing, being compared to an AWOL soldier, I can't help but go to work. I'm here right now to ask you to do the right thing, to give me, not just me, but really my constituents a voice in this chamber, a vote. It has absolutely nothing to do with the majority having its way. We have 41 members. We have enough votes to get things passed without my vote. But I would be wrong to shortchange the district that stood next to me in my hardest times by staying at home and not voting. I'm not asking to be a part of the debates. I'm not asking to be a part of the committees, but I'm asking you not to take away their vote, not to take away their representation. Please, do it for me and the 75,000 people I represent. Do it for Buckner and the 75,000 people she represents. Do it for Jackson and the 75,000 people that they represent, that she represents. And let's not forget those members that weren't able to complete their terms, like Representative John Buckner, like Lois Court, who had to leave the Senate early, like Kimmy Lewis. And yes, I'm going to say her name, Kimmy Lewis, because they had the same resolve and dedication to this building as each and every one of you that are healthy enough to be here. I ask for an aye vote on this resolution.
Representative Champion. And then it's Representative Sane and then Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, Representative.
This is a can of worms, and I rise in opposition of this particular resolution. I'm a student of history. Let me just, and I'm facing on the left side from here. In 2013, Harry Reid, the United States Senate, decided for judicial appointments that what he was going to do is he was going to make it a simple majority. You remember that? This is real important because what you're trying to do, or what you are going to do, is that you're going to change history. And you're in the majority right now, but this is not going to always be that case. And Harry Reid, I'll bet you, wished he had never done that, because there are two Republicans or two appointees to the United States Supreme Court that passed on a simple majority. Be careful, be very, very careful with what you do, because what we've got right now is we've got history behind us, but you're about to change that. Don't turn this into the nuclear option that you wish you didn't do. Thank you very much.
Then we have Representative Sane and then Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise in opposition to this policy. An everyday cold or flu could have killed Kimmy Lewis in her weakened state while she was receiving chemotherapy while serving in this chamber. She knew the risk. She never once asked for special treatment, unless you consider reclining in Marilyn's office off to the side while she was waiting to speak or to vote. For those who drew Representative Lewis into this debate, here today, I just want to ask a couple questions. Were you with her in the last 2 weeks of her life? I was. I drove for 6 hours white-knuckled in a blinding snowstorm because it might be the last time. Even with the shadow of death on her, she was talking about returning to the legislature, about bills that needed to be run for rural Colorado. Of this body here today, I was the last to leave her as she was lowered to rest. Kimmy Lewis would have never asked to participate from home. She knew one of the most important parts of representative government is to be here to represent. She showed that through her actions every day she was here. There are those who may be afraid, but Kimmy Lewis would never legislate from the position of fear. So please don't use her memory to cover for poor policy, to justify in what she did not believe in. And I'd ask for the minority to come up every time that happens to protect her memory. Kimmy Lewis didn't have any fear serving here, so don't use her to justify yours. Thank you.
Representative Holtorf, then Benavidez.
Madam Speaker, esteemed colleagues, number one, I'm not going to personalize any of this because it is larger than any one of us. This is larger than any one person or any one person's individual or specific circumstances. What we are doing here is in fact monumental and will have implications for years to come. Not just this specific resolution, but everything that comes thereafter. And there is a question in this state, and there's a question in my district about representative government in this state in light of this pandemic and the state of emergency and the numerous and onerous executive orders that have been written, over 72 and growing every day. Now, I offer an amendment that speaks to getting a 2/3 majority for this specific resolution in this House. It is warranted. It's a supermajority that underwrites this by this body that says by unanimous and supermajority consent, because of the state of this health crisis, we, this House body, this chamber of esteemed colleagues, think it is this important to do. Could you please offer the amendment?
Do you mean to display the amendment?
Yeah, display the amendment. Thank you. I've offered the amendment. Please display the amendment. Thank you. I move 20-L00, excuse me, House
You move L001.
L001. Say that right? I move L001.
Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So what this amendment does, members, is it requires a vote for once the resolution is adopted, for when the Speaker distributes the regulations on how it's going to work for the members to participate remotely. And in the email that I sent all of you, it had the draft of the resolution and a draft of the regulations. If you read 2-2-404, there is no vote required to pass out the regulations. So this actually doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And a lot of people have been talking about institution and changing institution and history and nuclear option. Let's just remember that we are operating under the temporary House rules that have been this way since 1963. 1963. I know I'm losing my voice, but I hope everyone heard that. So on one hand, I'm hearing we need to change, you're changing the institution, and we can't do this, even though 13 other states have adopted some type of remote participation because we are in a 100-year health pandemic. And on the other hand, I'm hearing next session, we need to change the institution. We can't have this. We can't have the temporary rules, even though it's been like this since 1963. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, don't change the institution, but we're going to change the institution. You can't do it. And there's no need for this amendment because there's no vote required to hand out the regulations. And let me just be perfectly clear. I've been reaching out to the other side of the aisle for the last month and a half to get this right. I've called, I've texted, I've called, I've texted. One of the members said, you know what? I can't believe the majority leader's called me 2 days in a row. Yes, because I'm trying to figure this out so that it doesn't put everyone in a bad spot. It's temporary. This isn't forever. Read the resolution. It's just for when there is a global pandemic and we're under a national or a state of emergency because of the health crisis. This is as tight as it gets. But I've been reaching out. Representative Benavides has had hours of phone calls with all of you. Representative Titone has sent emails and emails and emails and emails to everybody saying, tune in, let's figure this out together. This amendment does not make any sense. We don't need this amendment. Vote no.
Members, we don't bang on desks or chairs in the chamber to show support. Okay. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I mean, I do rise in support of this amendment, and to my understanding, Representative Holtorf wants to put some guardrails in place. And I think he even went to the majority leader ahead of time and gave him this amendment. And I completely understand why the majority leader would be opposed to this amendment or any first drafts that Representative Holtorf may have given to him. But to my understanding, what this would do is that it would basically say that any rules that the Speaker would promulgate, assuming that this passes, would require a 2/3 vote of our members here to essentially ratify it or adopt it. And I mean, for me, it's simple. 2/3 means 2/3. That's what we had in our rule book, even though we did adopt that resolution. And I can certainly understand the frustration that I heard from the majority leader on this, that this is something we've been doing since, I think from the 60s or 70s. But I still stand firmly on what I originally said, that it's very dangerous. I mean, Representative Carver, you know, she spoke on the underlying resolution, but it speaks to this very issue of remote participation and this entire process, that the institution itself is important. And I certainly think that we do need to respect, you know, this notion that rules shouldn't be changed by mere majorities. And that's what it is at this point. I mean, I'm pretty sure the majority party doesn't have 2/3 membership unto itself, so it does require some buy-in and some support from the minority, which is why I would support, you know, this, because ultimately we are headed down a very dangerous path. I know that right now we have a very well-intentioned majority leader, as well as the committee that was put together to try and deal with this. But even as benevolent as you are, Mr. Majority Leader, and the committee, I still wouldn't want to submit the rules to your benevolency. It needs to be subjected, quite frankly, to both parties coming to an agreement, which is why we have a 2/3 requirement to begin with. And I'll speak to the fact that, yeah, we did pass that resolution. I'll tell you right here, right now, that, yeah, we, as Representative McKean spoke about earlier, we did that as a matter of course, right? It was just something that we do, very standard. We do this every year, and we really don't give it much thought. And I will apologize to this chamber and to my constituents. I apologize for voting on something I didn't really quite understand, or at least what the implications could be. I guarantee you, come next year, it's not going to be like that. I will ensure, to the best of my abilities, that whatever we do with respect to the rules will need to be a 2/3 vote, because majorities and minorities do change. It's just a fact of life. It happens. And Representative Champion, you know, echoed this very beautifully with what happened in the United States Senate, right? These rules do matter, and which is why we really don't want to have to change them. The circumstances that we find ourselves in are temporary. And I do acknowledge that once the pandemic abates, I do acknowledge that the majority leader, and I think, you know, 41 of my Democrats are going to do away with this rule. But that's not really my concern. My concern is that we're opening the door to the possibility of making these rule changes. And that's what's frightening. And it may not be frightening to you, but that's because you're in the majority. There's 41 of you. There's only 24 of us. The rules are all we have. And contrary to what many of you may think, perhaps, or at least behave on, might does not make right. And that's the problem that we see here, that this is the majority running roughshod over the minority, which is why I support this amendment. Yeah, I do believe that if we're going to change a rule, we should have 2/3 vote. I mean, you guys have 41, right? It takes, what, three more of it? Convince 3 more of us to go along with you, and then you have it. And I'm struggling to find out what's so wrong with that. Why are we allowing ourselves even the possibility of changing this rule or any other rule with a mere majority, with only 33? That's dangerous, guys. And I understand the frustration, and I commend everyone here who is doing everything they can to help deal with this crisis. And I will be the first to acknowledge that the majority leader has gone out of his way to try and build consensus. But that does not mean we should upend what we all know to be right. And that's if we're going to change the rules that give our minority a voice, then we better do it by a 2/3 vote, by a supermajority, because the consequences could be disastrous. And I know this might not mean much to you right now because you are in the majority, but that's not always going to be the case. And I know darn well that if our minority leader were Speaker of the House and we were the ones proposing this, there would be people on your side of the aisle that would come up here and argue against this or try to put some sort of guardrail in place. So what I'm asking here is for consistency. That's really it. I'm not going to go so far as to say that there's hypocrisy going on, but I think we should at least acknowledge that when the tables are turned, you guys are going to very well appreciate the fact that there are rules in place that at least allow you the ability to have your voice heard in a meaningful way. So I do rise in support of this, and I ask that everyone here vote for this. 2/3 should be 2/3, and we shouldn't be able to get away with it because we passed a resolution that no one really quite understood when they did it at the beginning of the session. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Soper, you're speaking on the amendment. Okay.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I too rise in support of this amendment for being able to implement regulations that affect this great body should have 2/3 vote because, and it has nothing to do with, I appreciate the majority leader coming up here and talking. I just want to say, I've appreciated your work reaching across the aisle and sharing your concerns with us. But I think that it's not just about conversations. It's also about that if you truly wanted the full buy-in from the opposition party, the minority, you would also allow 2/3 vote, or you would put it in the form of a bill. And that would, just be our position, and that members, would make their decision based on that. But you wouldn't necessarily have a mechanism where you would change the temporary rules by a majority vote that was adopted by a majority vote, and that this is just a better mechanism to ensure that you have that full buy-in that you spoke so eloquently of wanting. So I would rise in support of this amendment.
Okay, is there anyone else speaking on the amendment? Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Also rise in support of this amendment. Normally, when we send a resolution to the vote of the people, it requires 2/3. Well, on this resolution, people were not even allowed to participate. The people of Colorado could not even sit in the gallery, much less testify in a committee hearing. I think we owe it to them to make this vote 2/3 as well.
Is there any further discussion on L001? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L001. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members please vote. For members in the gallery, how do you vote? Representative Duran? Duran votes no. Representative Froelich? Froelich votes no. Representative Gray? Gray votes no. Representative Landgraf? Representative Landgraf votes yes. Representative McKean? McKean votes yes. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes no. Representative Sullivan? Sullivan votes no. Representative Titone? Titone votes no. Is Representative Melton still here? Okay, so Melton will be excused. Please close the machine. With 24 aye votes, 38 no votes, and 3 excused, L001 to House Resolution 1002 is lost. This brings us back to the resolution. Is there any further discussion on House Resolution 1002? Representative Benavidez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I just want to clarify a few things. One is that this was never, ever intended to be partisan. This is an issue that can affect anybody on either side of the aisle. And just to clarify a couple of things, this is based on a statute. And I know Representative Soper had raised, why don't we bring a bill? The statute is very clear that says we have to do this by rule, that we have to pass a rule to authorize the speaker to invoke regulations. So it was very purposeful that it was done in this manner. And that statute, which was passed by another legislative body and has been on the books for decades, was empowering the body, the entire body, the House in this instance, to change their rule. And that's why we picked that. And we did, and I know I had conversations with some of you about the other statute that someone else referred to, which is 2-303, about interim committees allowing electronic participation and no other committees. That statute specifically authorizes the powers of the executive committee. So this statute, again, is empowering this entire legislative body to pass a rule, not a bill. So procedurally, that's why we did this. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood why we went through this process. And I will also tell you that this is not the resolution that I wanted. I wanted, oh shoot, sorry. I actually wanted a much broader ability for members to participate remotely, including in committees. So this was a way to address concerns that were primarily raised by the other side of the aisle. There were a lot of concerns about having people come in to testify. And that's why committees still allow people to come in and testify. That was a compromise. So we did address those things. This is very, very narrow, just allowing people to vote on second and third reading, and that's it, nothing else. So I hope when you consider this, you will look at that. Someone else raised, if everybody decided they wanted to do this, or most of us, we would have people all over the state. Well, the resolution does address, because the Constitution does address, that Denver and the Capitol is our seat of government. So the resolution addresses that actions taken by individuals outside of this area are considered being taken by the seat of government. It was really intended that this resolution comply with all of the constitutional requirements that we have to comply with as a legislature. And I do consider Representative Champion's comments, because you know, when this side of the aisle did that in Congress, it did ultimately come back to bite us. I don't disagree with that, you know, and was a benefit for the other side. And that is a risk, but this is so narrow. This is only the second time in 100 years there has been this kind of pandemic that has an emergency order. That is the only time this can come into play. It does not have a slippery slope associated with it that we can do more than that. It is very, very specific as to when it would arise, and that's what the rule says. This is not unheard of. In 2009, we passed Joint Rule 44, and that has the same condition, a pandemic and a state of emergency. That cannot be used any other time. So if we wanted to create something else, we would require a new rule. So I just wanted to address that so everybody knew we truly did attempt to consider everyone's concern in crafting this resolution. And it is based in statute. Second thing I wanted to, part of that too was the technology. And again, I mentioned to you, I am probably one of the most technologically challenged people in this chamber, you know? And I just find it odd that I'm sitting here fighting for technology when I barely know how to program my phone. I actually don't. My daughters do that for me. But I know that technology is part of where we're moving, not only as a legislature, but as a society, as a world. We can't ignore it. We have to embrace it, and it does work. And I do worry, one of the other things I wanted to say for those of you that didn't participate, that if 3 people are participating remotely, one of these screens will have their picture up where they are there participating. So you will see them. You will see when they voice their vote or wave their hand on a division. You will see that because also our Constitution requires that we identify the people that are voting and we authenticate it. And that's the way we do it. And all of you will have access to that. So I just wanted to make sure you all understood that. And, you know, I do worry when we make this kind of change, we're not going to be, maybe, in the majority forever. And, you know, that Green Party and their rise keeps me up at night. But I'm willing to take the chance because this is so important to let all of our members have a voice. Then I do want to address, as a member of the Latino caucus, that people of color are experiencing the reach of this pandemic more than others. It is a condition of the disparities in our health conditions, in our disparities in employment. People don't have the option necessarily, and it's at a higher rate in families of color, to be able to stay home. They have to go out and work. They are part of those essential employees. So it is important. And when comments are made of AWOL, you heard Representative Melton allude to that. That term, I know what AWOL means. It means absent without leave. So it might mean you didn't ask for permission, you forgot. But we know the connotation of AWOL and what that means. And this is about respecting each other as colleagues. So any terms like that we should not use. People that are making this choice to participate remotely, if we pass this, it's not their first option. They really want to be here. They want to be a part of this body 100%. But if all they can be is 50%, then that's what we have to do. So I would encourage you to follow what has been the guidelines of the CDC of our state in identifying vulnerable populations. I mean, I read something this morning that people, I had a birthday and turned 66 while we were gone. My family does not want me to be here. I live with a daughter who has asthma. She does not want me to be here, but I will be here. And yesterday they said, if you're over 60, you should stay home all summer, you know? So those are considerations we all have to make. But I also want to point out to you, and it's the lawyer in me that's telling me that when you compare someone who has a health condition to this situation, because this situation is about exposure to people that may be infected. It's not my coming in here with a broken leg that I can barely walk through. You know, it's not about that. It's about the people I'm going to pass on the way here, you know, in the parking lots, if I have to go out and get lunch, the people that may be in these halls who come to speak in our committees. It's about that. So those comparisons are not directly on point. You know, a better situation is someone who has let's say malaria, and they shouldn't be here. You know, this is more not about the individual. And I admire every individual, whatever their personal health condition or people that they live with. I admire their willingness, their strength in coming forward. So members, I encourage compassion for your colleagues. I encourage you to listen to your heart, and allow every member of this body to represent their constituents and support this resolution.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker. I respect every member in here, but I look at the way that we pass bills, and we have committees, and what is most important in those committees are people that can come down and testify. Because I know I've changed my votes on a testimony. Testimonies have been so powerful on, especially interests where I don't have the depth that I would wish that I'd had. So to me, we're voting on something that doesn't include our constituents to be able to come in and testify. Because right now the colleges are closed. They can't do remote testifying. So again, it's selfish to say it's all about the members. It's not, to me. It's why our Capitol is so empty right now of people. The void in this Capitol it's heartbreaking, because we know when it's a contentious bill, we get people to come down and testify. Well, if they don't have the opportunities to come down and testify, why are we allowing ourselves to even engage in this? They're more important than us. So I ask that you please vote no on this resolution. Constituents have to be able to remotely testify, call in, let them to have their voice in these bills. Because as you know, that's how we pass legislation. It's not about us, members. It's about them. And I don't think they're included in this remote type of testifying. So I ask that you vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on House Resolution 1002? Representative Kipp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I wasn't going to come down and say anything, but I do want to say something, because I think that we should all realize that our constituents have better access to the Capitol now because of the electronic access that they have that we have in any other time in history. People can text me, people can email me, and these chambers here, which might seat, 100 people? People all over Colorado can watch us on television and see what we're doing and hear what we're saying. People have better access to our chamber because of the electronics than they have at any time in history, and I just don't understand being stuck in the past. And I would personally go for a much broader thing, so thank you for everybody who's worked on this.
Representative Soper. Representative Soper, you have about 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, members. Yeah, I wanted to come down here once again because, first of all, the points that I raised when I first spoke have not been addressed yet in this debate. And the comments just said definitely went to the heart of what I was getting at, which is the discriminatory nature of this resolution towards rural Colorado. The lack of broadband internet to rural Colorado, even the lack of dial-up internet service to rural Colorado is certainly of major concern. And in a pandemic, like we're in right now, when businesses and certain government services and special districts and coffee shops and other places where you could access internet if you might not have the best service at your particular house, where do you go if you're forced in rural Colorado to participate remotely? Where? And even though I know the regulations do not say it that were in the draft form that committees of reference would not be participating, but it does raise the interesting question of if we wanted to invite the public to participate, Right now, they go to our colleges and universities to be able to be in front of the camera so that our committees of reference can hear them. If we're truly in the heat of a pandemic, the heart of a pandemic, the public would not be able to do that. And the reason why we have emergency powers of the governor is so that the governor can deal with the worst of an emergency so that all 65 or all 100 members do not have to be in this building. That's the point of the emergency powers of the executive, so that he or she can, and I believe one day we'll have a female governor, can address the emergency. And when the coast is clear, the rest of us come into this building to take care of the business of the people at that point in time. But to go down this route denies rural Colorado a voice if we truly are in an emergency. And I want everyone to really think about that the ability to watch on the Colorado Channel is not true for many Coloradans, at least in my part of Colorado, in House District 54, in House District 58, in 59, other places. There's topography issues. We have mountains that obstruct cell phone coverage. We have canyons. And there's probably not going to be a good mechanism. But I want you to really think about the practicality that if we are in the worst of the worst, this 100-year issue, rural Colorado's representatives, if we have to remain in our districts, we do not get to have a voice for our constituents. So think about that. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on House Resolution 1002? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Resolution 1002. Mr. Randall, please open the machine and members please vote. For members in the gallery, how do you vote? Representative Duran? Yes. Duran votes yes. Representative Froelich? Yes. Froelich votes yes. Representative Gray? Yes. Gray votes yes. Representative Landgraf? Landgraf votes no. Representative McKean? No. McKean votes no. Representative McLaughlin? McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Sullivan? Yes. Sullivan votes yes. Representative Titone? Titone votes yes. Please close the machine. With 38 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 3 excused, House Resolution 1002 is adopted. Do you want me to open up the machine for co-sponsors? Please open up the machine for co-sponsors. Please, Representative Duran wants to co-sponsor. Representative Gray will co-sponsor. Representative Froelich and Representative Sullivan. Representative McLaughlin will co-sponsor. Any other co-sponsors? Okay, please close the machine. Okay, that brings us to announcements and introductions. Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you,
Oh
Madam.
my goodness. I saw that.
What was it?
It was a paper airplane
Oh.
that is now stuck up there on the ledge. Yeah, come on back here, Rep. Gray. You've got a fine. I'm pretty sure there's an explicit rule against paper airplanes in the chamber. Okay, Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, thank you for that debate. It's always, this institution works when we're respectful, and I appreciated hearing all those arguments, so thank you for that. You're going to hear about committee announcements. Everything's on the schedule for tomorrow. I just want to give a quick announcement that in the morning, we don't have any floor work to do. We need to do a caucus on the budget itself. And so you'll hear from each of your caucuses on the budget and what that process will be, because I think there's an opportunity to participate remotely via WebEx in that caucus. We will gavel in here at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Okay, 1 p.m. tomorrow. One other thing I want to say is yesterday I talked about bills on the second reading calendar that most likely aren't moving forward. And the process for that is usually at the end of the day, we would calendar them way far out and they would just disappear. I didn't feel comfortable doing that yesterday. I want to make sure if there's any other questions or if you wanted to talk about any of the bills on the second reading calendar, that you had an opportunity to talk to me and anyone else about that. So we emailed out lists, and on one of the emails there was a list of bills on the second reading calendar, and it was split up between House bills, Senate bills, and then there was another line of bills most likely not to move forward. If you compare that list of most likely not to move forward to the bills on seconds and you have any questions about that, just let me know. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to work with you, and nothing will happen on the second reading calendar till at least tomorrow. So I just want to make sure I felt uneasy doing anything yesterday. I just want to make sure people had additional time to ask questions if they have them.
Representative Gray, you have a $5 fine. It wasn't you? Who was that? Oh, it was totally you. Oh my God. $5 fine, Rep. Gray, for paper airplanes. What'd you say? 5? Oh, stop it. I have no idea what she's saying. Okay, hold on just a second. Are there going to be further announcements on how caucuses are happening? I just want to make sure because I will address it if not. There's a House D and a House R caucus tomorrow on the budget. I think ours is in room 271, but we are also set up over WebEx, so anyone who wants to call in, you can call in from your house, you can call in from your office, you can call in from your car, you can call in from your neighbor, we don't care. So, but if you want to be in the room for the caucus and be in room 271, please let Kelly or Nina know so we can get a count. And then the House Republican caucus is where? To be determined. Okay, we don't know, but, and then what time are they? Because they're not on the calendar. 9:30? Okay, so caucuses begin at 9:30 tomorrow, and we will make sure those get on the calendar, okay? So caucuses on the budget tomorrow for both in separate caucuses. Ours is in 271 at 9:30. The House Republican caucus will let you know where that is. Okay. Who was next? Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Public Healthcare and Human Services Committee, we have more than a few bills up today. So we are going to get started as soon as possible here. We will get started no later than 12:10 p.m., so in about 8 minutes, in the old Supreme Court chambers. So looking forward to seeing all of you there. We're going to do the calendar a little bit differently. Representative Roberts has Senate Bill 126 with Representative Van Winkle. We're going to move that up to first, so Representative Roberts can dispense with his bill and move on to his committee that will be starting just a little after that. With that being said, we will see you in the old Supreme Court chambers. If you need a mask, my wife has been sewing these beautiful masks. I have Colorado Rockies, Denver Broncos. You let me know. They're in a plastic bag ready for you. So we're looking forward to seeing you in committee. And if you can't make it, if you're not in committee, still happy to get you one later on.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Transportation and Local Government Committee, we will be meeting at, I believe, 2 p.m. today instead of 1:30 because we took a little while. So we'll be meeting at 2 o'clock in room 107. We'll be downstairs. It's going to be spaced out differently than it has before, but we'll be in room 107. I'm not going to read the whole calendar. It's just stuff that's been on the calendar. I will call your attention, though, House Bill 1376, which is one of the orbital bills assigned to our committee. It was just assigned yesterday afternoon. And so I just want to call everybody's attention. We had a new bill assigned yesterday afternoon, House Bill 1376, with Representative Escar and Representative McCluskey. I will then pay my fine using the mechanism that Representative McKean was willing to.
Fantastic. Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So Business Affairs and Labor Committee will meet at 2 o'clock, Old Supreme Court Chambers. We have 15 bills that we'll be hearing, which is probably a record for Business Affairs and Labor. Just to let you know, we will not be meeting in the order that is in the calendar. That, for example, Senate Bill 108 is going to go up first, but I'm going to take bills up as sponsors are available and able to come and to attend. So that's at 2 o'clock, Old Supreme Court Chambers. And just on a personal note, if I could just take this moment to say, after 8 years, 4 years as vice chair, 4 years as chair, this is my last meeting as Business Affairs and Labor. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Representative Kraft-Tharp, for your service. Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rural Affairs and Agriculture, we are meeting upon adjournment. You heard Representative Singer make the note about a bill I'm going to do in public health, and then we'll get started with Rural Affairs. So let's say 12:20 start for Rural Affairs. We're downstairs in room 107. In addition to what's on the printed calendar, we're also hearing House Bill 1403. And then Capital Development Committee, a reminder, we have a meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. in 357.
Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Appropriations Committee will start here at 12:15. We'll give you a 10-minute stretch break. All of the bills that we will be speaking to today are listed as companion bills, Section 3 of your long bill budget narrative, minus 1376, which will be heard in transportation, and 1366, which was heard in education yesterday. Please bring your books. We'll see you at 12:15. Thank you.
I have several announcements. Representative Soper will substitute for Representative Pelton in Rural Affairs today only. Representative Sandrich will substitute for Representative Pelton in Public Health today only. Representative Geithner will replace Representative Holtorf in Public Health today only. Any other announcements or introductions? Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Ready for me to put us in recess?
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will be in recess till later today.
Thank you.